Ethan Klein, I've read the documents for your lawsuits against Casey Tron, Denims, and Frogan. It sounds like you have a solid case, and I think you are right when you say that they will be begging to settle. I propose that you accept their offer to settle, but that you do not ask for any of the things you asked for in the lawsuit itself. I propose that instead of asking for money, monetary damages, or even an apology, that you ask for one thing and one thing only. I propose that you ask that each one of them, in exchange for ending this lawsuit without having to pay a dime, that they give up their right to fair use. That they are waiving indefinitely their right, or whatever the limitation is the court will allow, their right to fair use, so that they may never react to content on a stream, a YouTube video, or in a public fashion again. You will take no money from them, so people cannot say that you are trying to make them go broke. You are not trying to take their careers away or cancel them. You are simply making it so that they have to succeed on their own merit and no one else's. They will sink or swim based on the content they and they alone can provide. I think that is a fitting punishment given the crimes committed, and will set a very interesting precedent going forward. Thanks for hearing me out, Ethan. Give it some thought, bud. So tonight we will be reading the Frogan lawsuit documents by Ethan Klein, aka Teddy Entertainment. I will be reading it in its entirety. I will not retract anything that the law themselves did not see fit to retract. So before anyone screams that someone has been doxxed by reading a public record, I will remind you that the word public is in the fucking name. If the United States government did not see fit to censor this information before they released it to the public, then I see no reason why I should. If it is in the document, I will read it. Now that the disclaimer is out of the way, so that everybody knows where we're at, we are not here to make a judgment. We will add commentary. I will try to, if I see a lot of legalese, I will attempt to translate that legalese into common man speak. If I see something that's I don't understand, we may take breaks to Google to make sure that we fully understand the document. But for the most part, this is just going to be a straight reading of this document. This is the document filed by Ethan Klein as his complaint and reason for suing. This is not a judgment. This is only one side of this case. We have not seen the defense's arguments against this. We may speculate throughout this. I will try to keep it entertaining, so we'll take breaks from reading it if it starts to get too dry, and we may try to speculate at certain points as to what the defense for certain arguments might be to see if we can poke holes in this argument. But for the most part, we're just here to read the argument. So we're here to determine how fucked they may or may not be, and how much money they might need to fight this. So they do need money. I'm not going to take that away from them. They do need money. So without further ado, I present to you Teddy Entertainment Inc. versus Morgan Kamal Majad, aka Frogan. Page 1. He starts off with a picture of Frogan exiting her stream to leave an empty chair on the stream. So that is how we are starting this complaint. And quotes directly from Frogan. Time to watch the new nuke ethically. Hell yeah. Thank you guys so much. I do appreciate everyone's support, and thank you for watching it with me. Frogan, prior to reacting to the content nuke. I came from the H3 Snark subreddit. I found my way here from Reddit. Frogan reading comments in her chat prior to reacting to the content nuke. Can I use the bathroom, please? I'll leave it playing. Frogan reacting to the content nuke. Introduction. This lawsuit is about ending the practice of lazy reaction content that copy the entire copyrighted work and purposefully siphon views and revenue away from the original. Over 7 years ago, the owners of Teddy Fresh Inc., Ethan and Gila Klein, established the legal standard for fair use. In the case Hassan Zadeh versus, we went through this last night, so I may skip over this section because I have a feeling this is going to be copy and paste introduction for all three of them, which is more than likely what their lawyers did. So this is, we're going to skip over this. This case involved group viewing sessions. So this is the exact same thing that we read last night on, it's basically the filing the same complaint. I'm skimming through it real quick to see if I see anything different, but it looks like the only thing that's different is the names involved. So instead of it saying Casey Tron's name here, it says Frogan. So it looks like they just copy and pasted and replaced Casey Tron's name with Frogan every time Casey Tron popped up. Short segments of another's work, blah, blah, blah. Frogan specifically intended her group viewing sessions to siphon the maximum number of views and revenue away from our copyrighted work, content nuke Hassan Piker, to herself, herein referred to as the nuke. Frogan successfully achieved her objective by releasing her group viewing session of the nuke immediately after its official release date and showing it in its entirety. Seeing if there's anything different here. It's pretty much copy-paste from the Casey Tron one. So again, if you guys want a full reading of the introduction, go watch the Casey Tron video. Frogan greatly profited from her group viewing session of the nuke through ad revenue, donations, and paid subscriptions. Okay, so this is all just copy, paste from the last one. Moderators of H3 Snark, yes, he's naming them as co-conspirators, which he did in the last one. Such as the mod successfully promoted Frogan's group viewing session, same thing they did for Casey Tron. Like most lazy reaction content, Frogan's group viewing session of the nuke suffers from poverty of critical commentary. So exact same wording and everything from the last one. And then he links to the video in question from the lawsuit where he set the precedent. So all that's the same. All right, here's where we get into what specifically Frogan did. So we'll skip the introduction. All right. Now we go to allegations against Frogan. Most frequently, Frogan plays long, unadulterated portions of the nuke to her viewers. In the majority of instances, she does not even pay attention to the nuke and, instead, is on her phone. Frogan even performs an empty chair stream, where she goes off camera for several minutes while the nuke keeps playing to keep her audience entertained. On the few occasions that Frogan does speak during her group viewing session, it is to provide repetitive statements on her favorite subject, not the plight of the Palestinians, but herself. Other times, Frogan provides short, surface-level observations that provide little to no new information, new aesthetics, new insights, or understandings of the nuke. So he's quoting directly from the judge in their ruling on the case where he set the precedent, that was the established standard. The vast majority of these observations have little to no critical bearing on the style or substance of the nuke. Rather, Frogan's commentary primarily consists of repetitive ad hominem attacks on Ethan without any reference to the nuke itself. Frogan's unauthorized, highly commercial exploitation of the nuke is a quintessential example of copyright infringement, i.e. using copyrighted content to get attention and avoid the drudgery and working up something fresh. This lawsuit holds Frogan accountable for her infringement of the nuke and the H3 Snark mods accountable for their contributions in said infringement. And we're going to skip the part about jurisdiction because that just says that they're legally allowed to hold the case there. So we'll skip over that. Why is Discord giving me a pop-up about Megan? I don't care about Megan. I am not interested in Megan 2.0. Thank you. Stop giving me bullshit. Okay. And this goes over the parties involved. We're going to skip over the Teddy Fresh one because we went over that in the last one. So I'm skipping over parts that look copy-pasted. If you guys need to know who Teddy Fresh Inc. is, again, go watch the Casey Tron reading. Frogan is an online streamer who releases content on social media platforms, namely Twitch, and resides in Los Angeles, California. Yeah, so that's basically copy and pasted from Casey Tron, just with Frogan's name. The H3 Snark mods are comprised of does 1 through 10. We'll be skipping over all of the does. Okay, so we'll be skipping over all of these. Doe number 1 is the female. Yeah, we're Ozempic dealer. Yes, we went over all of this last night and made fun of their silly names because they are silly names. Last night when we read over the Casey Tron stuff. Factual allegations. Background of Teddy Fresh Inc. We'll skip over their background. We already read that. So these may go by a little bit faster since we can skip over the copy-pasted parts from the first video. If you guys are watching all of these in order, then you've already heard all this too. Commentary, ultimately the minutes and 15 seconds. Fine. What is this? Klein video opens with, yeah, he's explaining. Alright, yeah, so that we can skip the background on Teddy Fresh, because we already know how he set the precedent. All right, Frogan. Frogan began streaming in June of 2019 and on a more regular basis in August of 2021. Frogan's career peaked in August of 2022 when she averaged 738 viewers on stream. That's it? I thought her peak was higher than that. How the hell did she win the Rising Star Award? I've hit over 1,000 before. Nobody knows who the hell I am. All right. Ever since, Frogan has steadily lost popularity. In January of 2025, i.e., the month of Frogan's group viewing session, Frogan only averaged 160 viewers per stream. Frogan holds herself out as an expert. The area of her expertise, however, has yet to reveal itself. An expert in what? She doesn't say. She's just an expert. That is, again, that is one of those legalese backhanded kind of insults there. This is how you do a proper insult, like when the British do one where they always sound so proper when they insult you. This is the legal version of that. All right. She claims to be a public health expert, yet Frogan admits her academic and professional career in public health was stunted by her lack of self-discipline. According to Frogan, her academic advisor conducted an intervention to ensure she would complete her master's. Frogan also admitted to abandoning her brief career in public health after her, quote, boss wanted to discuss her performance with the manager of her department. Frogan frequently portrays herself as a victim, particularly to cast herself as a Muslim woman persecuted by, quote-unquote, Zionists. The inconsistencies in her ever-evolving narratives, however, reveal that she is not a victim at the hands of others, but her own. The following example illustrates this pattern. So we're outright stating that we're establishing a pattern, which is what they did during the Casey Tron case. I expect them to do this with all of them, is they're going to establish a pattern of behavior with each person so that the judge can get a feel for their content, because the judge is just not going to go watch hundreds of hours worth of their VODs to get a feel for their content. So you're going to have to provide him with clips and make your case. And then her side, her defense attorneys are going to have to defend against it, hopefully being able to prove it wrong. I mean, if they got the clips to back it up, then they're going to have to also provide clips that show the opposite, which for some of them is going to be pretty hard to do. All right, so this is them establishing the pattern of her victimhood mentality. The professor who failed her. God, they write it out so it reads like a book. Chapter 3, the professor who failed her. All right. On August 7th, 2016, Frogan posted on X that her professor made her write about the Arab-Israeli conflict and gave her a D on the paper, unquote. When she was, quote, the only hijabi in the class, end quote. Nearly a year later, the story changed to make the professor seem worse. On June 10th, 2017, Frogan posted on X that her professor gave her an F, so she has changed the grade from D to F, because what she said about Israel was quote-unquote wrong. Several years later, so now she's claiming, because remember, they gave her a D on the paper because they asked her to comment on a conflict. Now it's because she said the wrong thing about Israel specifically. So she's changed that a little bit and changed the letter grade from D to F. Several years later, the story mutated further to make the professor seem divorced from reality. On May 8th, 2021, Frogan posted on X that her quote-unquote professor assigned her, the only Arab in the class, to do a project about the Arab-Israeli conflict and failed her when she talked about how Palestinians occupied by Israel. So how Palestine is occupied by Israel. So it has changed again to now include Palestinians. What do you think happened between June 10th, 2017 and May 8th, 2021? Did the conflict change to be about Israel-Palestine? Did the political climate change and now she needed to insert it somewhere? Is that maybe what happened? Or maybe she just misremembered the event. I'm trying to figure out what her... When shown these three posts back to back in front of a judge, I'm trying to figure out how her defense could spin this. And I have a feeling they're going to go with the, well, you know, she's trying to remember something. Each time she makes a new post, she's trying to remember something that's years old. So the general message is the same. She's just forgetting the details. That's probably the argument they'll go with. It's kind of the only argument I got that you got, I believe. All right. Oh, readjusting my seat here so I can lock in. All right. In this instance, Frogan provided a screenshot summarizing two sides from this paper or project, one of which contains a glaring Twitch tracker Frogan available at, so she's showing her statistics from Twitch. I'm not sure why that's included in her college paper. Frogan About available and the About page on her Twitch channel. Visionaries, how Frogan went... Oh, this is all the citations. Never mind. It's weird. They didn't make the line go all the way across. I thought it was part of the same thing. Okay, so to continue the sentence we were just reading, I'll reread it. Frogan provided a screenshot summarizing two sides of this paper or project, one of which contains a glaring inaccuracy that Frogan admits was wrong. Okay, well, I tried to give them a little grace and say that they were going to go... Maybe she's just misremembering something from years ago. Who hasn't done that was going to be their defense. But she has no excuse for not remembering it now because she's showing the actual paperwork from said event. So she has it in front of her now. So there's no misremembering anymore. And when she pulled it up and had it in front of her, there was an inaccuracy that she admits was wrong. In the slide, Frogan claimed that there were, quote, over 400 million Palestinians live in refugee camps in occupied territories and other Arab states. According to the UNWRA, there are only 1.5 million Palestinians living in refugee camps, and they're citing their sources here. This glimpse into Frogan's paper and its obvious inaccuracy reveals why Frogan received a low grade. Her paper was wrong, quote unquote, because it contained factual inaccuracies. Instead, Frogan painted herself the victim of a fanatical professor who discriminated against her and promulgated, Jesus, that word, a counterfactual narrative that Israel is not copying the West Bank and is not occupying the West Bank and Gaza. So she's basically saying that the professor discriminated against her because they had a disagreement over politics. She is doing a thing that so many of them will try to do in my comments, and you'll see them do it on Twitter, and you'll see them do it everywhere, where they will just insert Free Palestine into conversations that have nothing to do with Palestine, or they'll insert the word genocide, or they'll insert these talking points. They'll just insert them anywhere. It could be a post about a Wendy's burger, and there will be some douchebag in the comments who wants to bring up Israel-Palestine. Every single time. That's why I can't get into politics, man. It's brain rot. All right. I'm interested in the lawsuit and fair use. I'm not interested in the politics side of it, but this is all part of it. It's painting a bigger picture, so we're going to cover it. Okay. The Zionist Therapist. On October 24th, 2019, Frogan posted on X that she went to therapy for the first time. And after talking about her dad fleeing the Israel-Lebanon war, she was taken aback when her therapist responded with, "I'm sick. Israeli, do you have any issues with me being your therapist?" Original spelling with emphasis added. Okay, so that's why it's reading so weird. That is exactly how she typed it. All right. As a self-described public health expert, Frogan should have realized that her therapist was admitting to 1. The American Counseling Association's Code of Ethics, and they cite the Code of Ethics for counselors, and 2. The American UNWRA Palestinian refugees available at, and they provide sources. So that's true. I've never been to therapy, but I do have a therapist in my family, and that's a thing that they have to do. So if there's a potential conflict of interest between you and your therapist, whether intentional or unintentional, the therapist has to point it out. This isn't like a direct attack. This isn't meant to single you out. This is something they legally have to do. So, for instance, if you're an atheist and your therapist is a believer in God.
Man, I'm heading off and catch you around.
All right, later, man. I'm going to get out of the Discord too so we don't get any more interruptions. Okay. For instance, if you are an atheist, but your therapist is a Catholic, a strong believer in God, then the therapist has to bring up that discrepancy because you two may not have the same moral compass, you two may not see the world the same way, and you don't want to be judged based on their standard when it's a standard you yourself do not abide or live by. So they have to bring up stuff like that. It's unethical not to. All right, just clarifying that for people who think she was singled out, because that's the narrative she's going to push. So I'm trying to provide clarification when necessary. Okay. Frogan repeatedly exhibits a fundamental lack of understanding of the Middle East and Lebanon. For example, on October 15th, 2024, Frogan watched a speech by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu that referenced the Duras. In response, Frogan began to say, "Who the fuck are," end quote, before being cut off by her co-host, who explained they discussed the Duras in a prior episode. So she should have known what she was about to say was wrong, and they saved her during that. Arabab's podcast, What is Israel's plan with Lebanon? October 15th, 2024. They give the timestamp and its availability. Okay, so... Oh, why am I reading all this? I have to remember to stop reading the citations. These are just the citations, so it's kind of breaking this stuff up. Yeah, I'm just reading the citations here. Okay, interesting citation. He gives her exact quote and timestamp and then provides a link to the video. But that was just a citation to something he mentioned earlier. Citation number 10. All right, so I got to remember, if I see the little numbers, don't read those parts. We're not reading the citations. You guys can go over those on your own. I'm just trying to get the complaint and just know that he is citing sources for all the stuff he's saying. That's all in the document, so if you guys want to check his sources, feel free. I'm not going to go over all his sources. I've accidentally read a few of them. There's no need for us to read all that. All right. Let's get back to the sentence we got cut off on. All right. There we go. Frogan should have realized that her therapist was abiding to 1, the American Counseling Psychological Association ethics principles of psychologists and code of conduct. And then they give the legal code for that. 7 years later, Frogan's story about her therapist mutated. On February 29th, 2024, Frogan posted on X about her, quote, bad experience with a Zionist therapist. Emphasis was added by Frogan. When Ethan responded that Frogan was using Zionist as a dog whistle for Jews, which was clearly the case, Frogan made another post that, that's called a typo by his lawyer. I'll read it as written. But this is not a quote. This is his lawyer making a typo. Frogan made another post that painted the therapist as absurdly rabid and unethical. Below is a true and correct screenshot of the post. I don't think they're going to hold the typo against him. I just thought it was interesting that he's got a team of lawyers and a typo still slipped through. Huh. All right, so he's got a screenshot, which I can't make bigger because this isn't a PDF. It's just a viewing of the document. Unfortunately, I'd have to download it and pull it up in a PDF editor. Maybe we can zoom it in. Yeah, we can zoom it in so we can read it. All right, let's do that. When I say my therapist was a Zionist when I went to her back in 2019, I mean she literally brought up that I was Lebanese unprompted and confronted me on it, saying she was Israeli. She asked if I had a problem with that, if I felt like Israel had the right to exist, started asking more and more if I was frustrated with Islam and have considered taking off my hijab. I asked her if she was all right with me being Lebanese, and she got really aggressive, accusing me of flipping it on her and refused to answer. Nope, that's exactly what you just did, though. You just explained how you did that. You didn't answer her question, and instead you asked her a question. It's not Jeopardy. You're not supposed to answer your therapist's questions with a question. She's not the one. She's not the one that's being questioned here. She's not the one at therapy. You are. You went there to be asked questions and to give honest answers. So why are you fighting back against that? So when I say Zionist, I don't mean she was Jewish. I mean she was a racist Israeli who could not help herself but to confront me about my ethnicity in what was supposed to be a therapy session, which he did already quote and link to why no, I gotta keep going back. There we go. Which he did already quote and link to why the therapist legally has to do that. There was a conflict. There was a potential conflict of interest. She had to. She's not racist. The therapist was doing her job. Now, I don't know about her response. Maybe she did get defensive, but I don't know what Frogan said. I have a feeling she's probably downplaying what she said. And text on Twitter doesn't give you Frogan's tone of voice. If she talked to her the way she talks on stream in that condescending tone, she may have struck a nerve with the therapist. That is absolutely possible. I would not doubt it. Could be wrong. None of us are in the room, so we don't know for sure. Prior to October 7th, Frogan was an effusive fan of Ethan and the podcast series he co-hosted with Hassan Piker, a.k.a. Hassanabi, referred to from here on out as just Hassan, entitled Leftovers. On October 7th, once October 7th occurred, Frogan's social media activity demonstrated her support for Hamas and endorsement of blood libel conspiracy theories. Below are some examples. At 2:28 a.m., Pacific Standard Time on October 7th, i.e., when Jews and Israelis were griped by panic and fear for their loved ones. Frogan posted on X, Leftists preach and foam at the mouth at the thought of a revolution happening in America. But as soon as it happens in the Middle East, what they're doing is wrong. Due to the insensitivity and timing of the post, Ethan decided to quietly unfollow Frogan. Shortly thereafter, Frogan liked a post on X by Aleska Volovic, aka Boy Boy, that was posted on October 7th, which stated, and I quote, "It's game over for Israel. James Bond is officially fighting for Hamas." Below is a true and correct screenshot of that post. And he's quote tweeting somebody else that says footage of Hamas infiltrator using a motorized hang glider to get into Israel. This is insane. So some guy hang gliding into Israel, and he makes a James Bond joke. It's a joke. Let's see how she reacted to it, though. I mean, funny joke, if I'm being honest. Okay, readjusting here. All right. On October 11th, 2023, Frogan made a public scene over Ethan unfollowing her and posted on X, TFW, I'm glad he defined that because I've never seen that acronym used, so he defines it for the judge. That feeling when one of your favorite content creators unfollows for being pro-Palestine. Laughing my ass off. That's her original spelling. She then went to the Discord of Hassan to indulge in self-pity and pleaded with Ethan to refollow her. On November 17th, 2023, when it was falsely reported that Israel bombed the Al-Shafi hospital, Frogan liked a tweet spreading grotesque blood libel and falsely claimed Israel, quote, admitted to harvesting skin and organs from dead Palestinians to use for skin grafts and organ transplants. And the majority of skin in Israel's skin banks was stolen from Palestinians they killed. Below is a true and correct screenshot of that post. And he provides a screenshot of it. I'm not going to zoom in on all these screenshots. It looks like she's quote tweeting somebody else. I'll kind of go over it. I'm not going to zoom in on that anymore. Israel is stealing Palestinian corpses from Al-Shafi. He's literally quote tweeting a Twitter user who just has the name Free Palestine. To hospital for God knows what. There's no fuel, water, or electricity. Internet has been cut off. There's not enough food, and it doesn't show the rest of the post. And then he provides screenshots of something, and she responds to it with that, where she claims to know why they're stealing the bodies. Frogan serves as one of the moderators of Hassan's chat. Far from being a neutral arbiter, Frogan weaponizes her role as Hassan's enforcer to ruthlessly silence dissent and cruelly target her enemies, while elevating those who excuse and justify terror and violence. For example, on November 9th, 2023, after Frogan created a public controversy over Ethan unfollowing her, Hassan and Ethan discussed the Israel-Palestine conflict. Hassan's chat was replete with hateful and bigoted comments about Ethan, which Frogan refused to moderate out of vindictiveness towards Ethan. All right, now we're on to background of the H3 snark, which I believe is a section we can skip because they already outlined the background of them in the Casey Tron case that we read. So I'm going to skip over this. Yeah, the Leftovers podcast, the surge of new users. Yes, this is copy pasted. Hassan became passionate and civic leader of the Palestinian cause. Yep, same pictures there. So this is literally copy pasted. Rampant copyright infringement by H3 Snark. This is literally copy-pasted from the last one. So we can skip over these. They were covered in the Casey Tron video. Going over the takedown notices. So these new readings are going to be a little shorter because we can just keep skipping over the copy-pasted stuff. If you guys want the full context for this copy-pasted stuff, feel free to go watch my reading of the Casey Tron documents. Those were the first documents I read, and I read them in their entirety. If I see something that looks like stuff I've already read in that document, I am going to skip it in the remaining 2 documents. That's not me being out of context. All right, here we go. We got... Okay, now we're getting somewhere. Let's go back. Okay, there we go. All right, so this is where it becomes new again. Frogan's group viewing session failed to make fair use of the content nuke. It is readily apparent that the primary and overriding purpose of Frogan's use of the nuke was to commercially exploit a group viewing session of the nuke and have it serve as a substitute for the original. This is evidenced by A. Frogan's statements demonstrating that she intended for her group viewing session to serve as a substitute of the nuke, such as on January 30th, 2025, the day before the nuke was released, Frogan made a statement on stream demonstrating her group viewing session, along with the group viewing sessions of her friends, would serve as a substitute for the original. A true, I'm going to read the citation on that one so people do get the context right, because I already hear the people in the comments going, what does that mean? What is he talking about? So the 2 citations used for this are a true and correct copy of Frogan's January 31st, 2025 broadcast is located on the flash drive as Exhibit H. A true and correct copy of the clip from Frogan's January 30th, 2025 stream is located on the flash drive as Exhibit I. So he downloaded these VODs before ever releasing that nuke. All of this was readily available. This was all ready to go because he more than likely anticipated that they would delete their VODs, which Frogan has done, by the way. Her channel now has no VODs on it. Not that it matters. I read that citation for a reason that shows that they already have those VODs. They do not even need to subpoena Twitch. So before I see the arguments on Twitter and in my comments that Ethan's lying because there was no subpoena to Twitch, because none of this stuff is mentioned in the video, you'd have to actually read the documents. So before I see those arguments that, well, they're not subpoenaing Twitch, so maybe I guess there was nothing in those VODs, I can already hear the copes now. They do not need to subpoena Twitch. The court already has copies of the VODs in question, as outlined right here. All right. He, i.e. Ethan, wants to maximize numbers. Here's the thing, though. No matter what, there are going to be people, i.e. other creators, that they, she's referencing the audience, would rather watch it with. No matter what time he goes live, Denims goes live at like 7 in the morning. Sean goes live early as fuck. Mike from PA also goes on early as fuck. I go live in the afternoon, but lately I've been going live a little bit earlier. So she's basically outlining to the court right there that it does not matter what time of day Ethan was going to drop his nuke. No time would have been safe from their siphoning of his viewers. They spent the entire day streaming in shifts, ready for the drop of the nuke so that they could siphon those viewers away to their stream, which they outright asked those viewers to do. That is not up for debate. All of that evidence has been provided. That is what they did. Shortly before watching the nuke, Frogan made the following statements acknowledging: 1. That her group viewing session of the nuke was a substitute for watching the original, and 2. H3 Snark was funneling audience members to Frogan's group viewing session of the nuke with statements such as, "We have a bingo card, the Snark Reddit made it, shout out to them, Exhibit H." So now he's referencing those flash drives that have the VODs on it and given timestamps. Thank you guys so much. I do appreciate everyone's support, and thank you for watching the nuke with me. Watching it with me, and she was referencing the nuke. Reading from chat. First time viewer, time to watch the nuke ethically. Frogan responded with, hell yeah. Reading from chat. I found my way from Reddit. Frogan's response. Hi guys, welcome, Reddit people, Reddit people, Reddit people. Reading from chat. I came from H3 Snark Reddit. Ethan is so pathetic, while Hassan is unbothered and having a great time. Frogan's response. Exactly. Reading chat. We're going to watch live, right? Frogan's response. We're going to watch live. Yes. So she's outright asking if they're going to be stealing his views, to which she responds with a definitive yes. Frogan begins her group viewing session of the nuke 1 minute after the nuke was released to the public. The timing of Frogan's group viewing session of the nuke demonstrates that she did not pre-screen it to formulate her opinions prior to the broadcast. In other words, her priority was to personally and financially benefit from providing a substitute for the original, and any commentary and criticism was a mere afterthought. Section C. On 40 separate occasions, Frogan's group viewing session compromises of watching the nuke primarily at 1.5 to 1.75 speed for 30 seconds or more with no commentary whatsoever, or at most including an unintelligible word or phrase. In most instances, Frogan is not even paying attention to the nuke. Rather, her head is buried in her phone texting someone else. In the aggregate, these excerpts comprise 72 minutes, approximately 70% of the nuke. The poverty of Frogan's commentary, coupled by showing long, unadulterated portions of the nuke, further demonstrates Frogan intended her group viewing session to serve as a substitute of the original. And here he has a chart. I'm going to explain the things I see for those people listening to it like a podcast. I know this is not a visually stunning thing to watch. But he's putting up a chart right now that has timestamps of excerpts from Frogan's group viewing session. So he's got timestamps here. Total duration of the excerpt. Okay. Speed the nuke is played at. Okay. And duration of the nuke shown, accounting for speed. And it looks like that chart goes like he's breaking down every single timestamp of when she spoke. What is this? Are they going to explain what this chart is? Oh, okay. In completely separate instance from those listed above. Yeah, so this is supposed to be her reactions. So they're showing all her reactions, most of which are under 60 seconds. It's a lot of 50, 37, 40, 39. A few that are over a minute long, most of which are about half a minute to, yeah, so they averaged them all out. Yeah, most of them 47, 55, 40, 65, 56, 44, 44, 91, 70, a couple 70s, 74, 72, 46, a couple 80s in there. So she only for a few times spoke, and the fact that she's playing it at a faster speed, so that means that she is talking over top of the nuke without pausing it, because these timestamps are overlapping with her commentary, and they're doing the math. So when she watches it at 1.7 speed, they're doing the math to figure out how many actual seconds of the nuke that accounts for. So obviously at 1.7 speed, if you watch 1 second, they're going to display that as amount of duration of the nuke shown accounting for speed. So if you only watched 1 second at 1.75 speed, they're going to show 1.75 there, not 1 second. So they're accounting for the speed up, which makes it look even worse, because that means that 47 seconds of her commentating over 45 seconds of the nuke being played at 1.75 speed means more of the nuke was played than you commentated, simply because the nuke is moving faster than you are. Essentially, you guys are in 2 different time zones. All right. i.e., letting the nuke play while Frogan is completely off screen. So she did an empty chair react. At a certain point, Frogan asked her audience, "Can I use the bathroom, please? I'll leave it playing." For 1 minute and 51 seconds, Frogan lets the nuke play at 1.5 speed. This is why that's important. This was another argument I saw from that smaller streamer that got thrown into my YouTube feed, and I gave him a chance. They were trying to say it's not a big deal. She was only gone for 2 minutes. Well, if she's only gone for 2 minutes and she's playing the content nuke at 1.5 speed, then that means that 3 minutes of the nuke were played to her, just under 2 minutes gone. So more of the nuke is played than time she was away. Time is moving faster. She's fucking Goku in the hyperbolic time chamber, guys. Time moves differently in there, but when he comes back out, way more time has passed. Or no time has passed, but when he's, it's like that. She's in the hyperbolic time chamber while the nuke is still just running along at full speed. So you gotta think of it like that. Okay. So she played it at 1.5 speed while she is off screen relieving herself. When she returns, Frogan is practically silent for an additional minute and 3 seconds, i.e., a total of 1 minute and 34 seconds of the nuke. At this timestamp, even when Frogan does pause the nuke, those moments frequently comprise of painfully pregnant pauses. That's a weird wording. Painfully pregnant pauses as Frogan struggles to find something to say. Many of these excruciating moments of silence, or primarily silence, last 10 seconds or longer. For reference, I am now going to show you guys what 10 seconds of dead air looks like. Feels a lot longer, doesn't it? 10 seconds doesn't sound like a lot till you have to sit there in silence. Anyone watching the video during that moment on my stream and hers right now is probably checking to make sure the stream didn't get shut down, that their phone didn't die, that the browser hadn't crashed. In other words, it's a red flag and makes people think something went wrong. Okay. The consistent dead air during Frogan's group viewing session further emphasizes that commentating on and critiquing the nuke was an afterthought to the primary purpose of Frogan's group viewing session, to financially capitalize on the public interest in the nuke by siphoning views away from the original and to herself. If the opposite were true, Frogan would have taken her time to formulate her thoughts and select the portions of the nuke she intended to critique. Frogan also uses her group viewing sessions to infringe on other copyrighted works. For example, the intro to Frogan's group viewing session consists of playing numerous songs in their entirety by the artist Bad Bunny, while a countdown clock is displayed for when her stream will begin. And they give a timestamp for that, which looks like, damn, a 13-minute long intro? What the fuck you doing? I mean, sometimes I do 10 minutes, but usually I try to stay around 5. All right. And yes, I play music and have graphics on mine, but the graphics were made by me, and the music was made by AI. All right. On another occasion, she plays an uninterrupted 29-second excerpt from Arab Money Remix by the artist Busta Rhymes, without any commentary or criticism. Music industry does not like copyright infringement, Frogan. Frogan fails to address the vast majority of points raised in the nuke, which further emphasizes that Frogan's primary purpose was to host a group viewing session, and that any criticism was an afterthought. He keeps hammering that point home, which is why it is so frustrating and mind-blowing to me that so many people are avoiding that point. Like, it's so apparently obvious that you guys have got to come up with better arguments. This is lazy. You're just, all of your arguments boil down to you trying to convince the internet that water ain't wet. You're fooling no one outside your bubble. If you guys are really trying to gaslight people, just put the effort in, man. Do better. Alex Jones has some crazy theories, but man, does he put some imagination into them. Lizard people, gay frogs. I mean, it's all in there, man. He goes above and beyond to make it entertaining and as wild as possible. You guys could put a little more effort in. Just saying. At least be entertaining with it. The points from the nuke that Frogan fails to address are detailed below. Frogan fails to address the following points raised in the prologue to the nuke. Hassan's take on the Uyghurs in China. The primary political difference between Ethan and Hassan on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Ethan's support of the Palestinian cause. The underlying concern of the Mizrahi Jews. Look, I'm not going to be good at reading some of these, okay? This isn't my wheelhouse. And Israelis in general. With the one-state solution. Hassan's support of terrorism. I'm going to take one more quick tangent because this guy also tried to point out that when Hassan had that Houthi on, he wasn't supporting terrorism because at the time, Biden was in office when he interviewed the Houthi, and the Houthi wasn't a designated terrorist while Biden was in office. That didn't happen until Trump got into office, which is true. However, the context he is leaving out is that when Hassan made the statement, let's just say I don't have a problem with them, showing his support for them, he also openly admits during that same statement in the hotel room with his friend that they are a designated terrorist group. So that shows that even after they were designated a terrorist group, he continued to support them. Just for context. Because I'm so sick of seeing that point too. All right. Hassan's support of terrorism, Ethan's commentary on Hassan and his friends discussing how they radicalized their audience through the radicalization funnel, Hassan conceding he is a propagandist. He does not hide this fact. I can't believe people still try to defend this. He said it openly, and thus blowing the mind, and then reiterating to confirm it to Piers Morgan. It's a very famous clip. He tells Piers Morgan multiple times he's a propagandist. Piers Morgan's mind is blown. Piers Morgan tries to give him an out to backpedal. He refuses, and then he goes, well, okay then. So, there you go. Just saying. Hassan's hatred of liberals. Frogan fails to address the following points raised in the Twitch parody sketch of the nuke. Twitch embracing extremist rhetoric. Number 2, Twitch rebranding terrorism. And number 3, the media-biased report demonstrating Hassan is not a reliable source of information. I mean, by definition, he's not. He is a self-proclaimed propagandist. Frogan fails to address nearly every point raised in the Houthis section of the nuke. Namely, 1, Hassan glorifying and disseminating Houthi propaganda. 2, the Houthis' atrocities and how they contradict leftist values. 3, the critique of Hassan indoctrinating Nick. Example, the Houthi... Oh, Nick is that friend of his that he said the thing to that I said. See, I don't know these people's names. I don't watch political content. I am just here for the lawsuit and the legal part of this. But I have to read through this. All right. Hassan indoctrinating Nick. Example, the Houthi music video, calling the video a musical, calling the Houthis a musical people, debunking Hassan's assertions of the hijacking of the Galaxy leader, the critique of Hassan's belief that the Jews will just leave Israel if commerce is disrupted, and the majority of Israelis are Jews from Arab countries. The entire segment concerning Al-Hadid, and I'm only probably correctly pronouncing these names because I've heard them said while going over so many of these clips at this point by other people. So I'm assuming I'm saying them right. If I'm not, then they said it wrong too, so it's not my fault. All right, number 5. Hassan deflects criticism by pulling the genocide card. And number 6, Hassan being unable to locate Yemen on a map. Did you guys know there's a KFC in Yemen? No way, dude! I'm sorry, I can't. That meme's too good. I can't. I had to take a break. I had to take a break from reading. Just reading that part, that's all I can hear in my head is Ethan go, no way, dude, there's a KFC in Yemen! The memes that came out of that were hilarious, too. Alright. There we go. Alright, number 4. Frogan fails to address a single substantive point raised in the Hezbollah section of the nuke. Notably, 1. Hassan glorifying and disseminating Hezbollah propaganda, the leftist. Okay, I read that part. No, I didn't read that part. She's going over the same points again. Hezbollah's atrocity and how they contradict leftist values. Hassan praising Nasrallah and Nasrallah's anti-Semitic statements. And 4. Hassan's apologia of Hezbollah. Scroll down a little bit. Well, 51 of 64, guys. We're getting there. Section 5. Frogan also fails to address a single substantive point raised in the Hamas section of the nuke. Notably, Hassan disseminating and glorifying Hamas propaganda. 2. Hamas's atrocities and how they contradict leftist values. She's still... So in multiple sections, she refused to raise a single substantive point. Number 3, the critique of Hassan's reaction to the hostage relief video, the sniper rifle video, and Hassan's analysis of the same. Number 4, the critique of Hassan's denial of sexual violence on October 7th. And they did number 4 twice. I found another typo in this. 4 and 4. Come on, Ethan. Get your lawyers to, have their paralegals look this over one extra time. Number 5. I'm going to call it number 5. Number 5. The critique that Hassan denies the suffering of Israeli victims to make Hamas unimpeachable. H. Frogan's poverty of commentary on the nuke is so blatantly obvious that her chat constantly lambasts her lack of commentary. Notable examples are provided below. On at least 3 occasions, Frogan reads chats calling her out for her failure to address the points raised in the nuke, such as, "Don't you have anything to say?" And number 2, "Could you make at least one good point?" Number 3, "How anyone listens or watches you is insane." So I can already hear the cope for these, and that those are H3 fans coming to brigade her chat. Maybe, maybe not. But if the things they are saying can be proven in the video, I'd argue it doesn't matter who said them. If all that matters in front of a judge is that these statements are factual. So this argument that something came from DGG or something came from here or something came from there, blah, blah, the judge doesn't care about any of that. He only cares about the truth. That's how court works. There is no such thing as a bad source. There are only facts. Is the thing you're putting before me factual? And can you prove it? That's it. Frogan's response to these critiques effectively concedes she is incapable of providing substantive commentary by stating, number 1, like, what commentary do you want me to add? Be like, oh, this guy's a fucking idiot. He's mentally ill and he's having a mental breakdown and uploaded it to fucking YouTube. Number 2, what do you want me to make a point on? Number 3, calling people in her chat a bitch. Section 3. On at least 3 occasions, Frogan reads chats calling her out for being a hypocrite, such as, number 1, Frogan dragging the crew into the dispute, Exhibit H at this timestamp, despite Frogan previously stating that the crew should be left alone. Number 2, Frogan is not a pacifist. They give the timestamp again, despite claiming to be a pacifist. And they give a timestamp of her contradicting herself. So if they got videos of her contradicting herself, again, it doesn't matter if there's people in chat or DGGers or H3 fans or whatever group you guys are going to blame it on. If they've got 2 separate clips of her saying things that contradict themselves from the same stream, which they are clearly referencing here, that is all the judge cares about. Simple as that. Frogan not being aware of the context of a clip, despite accusing Ethan of using clips out of context. Section 4. Finally, on at least 2 occasions, Frogan reads chats calling her out for engaging in quote-unquote damage control and quote-unquote running defense. And again, he gives the timestamps. Section 1. When Frogan does share her thoughts during her group viewing session, most of her statements that have no critical bearing or minimal critical bearing on the style or substance of the nuke below are some examples. Number 1. One of the most frequent utterances by Frogan is expressing excitement over the appearance, or rather non-appearance, of her friends in the nuke. A lot of timestamps were just referenced. In these specific instances, Frogan does not address how her friends are portrayed in the nuke. Number 2. On numerous occasions, Frogan makes utterances that are completely incoherent. And again, he gives 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 timestamps. Number 3. On other occasions, Frogan will discuss completely unrelated topics, such as, number 1, the purported harassment of her friend. He gives a timestamp. Number 2, an emergency notification she received. Gives another timestamp. Number 3, thanking another streamer for raiding, directing viewers to her stream. He defines what raiding is for the judge because he may not be familiar with these internet terms. Frogan's stream, for raiding Frogan's stream, gives a timestamp. Number 4, discussing a dispute between Ethan and Daniel Keene, aka Keemstar. Gives the timestamp. Number 5, arguing with her chat on completely unrelated points. Gives timestamps. And number 6, discussing members of the crew for the H3 podcast, and gives 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 timestamps for that one. Section 4. In other instances, Frogan merely narrates what is shown in the nuke. And narration is one of the things, I know we didn't read it this stream, but we read it during the Caseytron stream. Narration is one of the things that they specifically call out in the 4 tenets of fair use as not being considered fair use. So that's not adding anything to the video. They specifically call out narration, voiceover, like they give a couple of different acronyms for basically just doing a play-by-play of what's on screen. That's not anything. All right. Section 5. Frequently, Frogan engages in superficial ad hominem attacks on Ethan without any further discussion, such as calling him stupid, crashing out, having a mental breakdown, and other such personal attacks. And he references 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 timestamps. Section 6. Frogan complains about the length of the nuke with little explication. Gives timestamps. Section 7. Frogan plays the bingo card game created by H3 Snark. Gives timestamps. Looks like quite a few of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 timestamps. Number 9. Other times, Frogan makes brief and surface level insults and complaints about the nuke, such as, number 1, claiming she is disgusted watching the nuke. which would lead to the argument, why did you not turn it off? Number 2, claiming the nuke is just a clip compilation with voiceovers. It's clearly not. Number 3, complaining how Hassan's dog, Kaya, is portrayed. Number 4, calling the nuke a content sparkler. Okay. Number 5, complaining about the nuke's use of the Miami Boys Choir. Is there a problem with that? Is there something wrong with the Miami Boys Choir? Okay. And number 6, brief insults of the sound effects, editing, and graphics used in the nuke. Section J. In other instances, Frogan makes blithe and unsupported false assertions about the nuke and Ethan. Frogan's inability or unwillingness to substantiate her comments demonstrates that if Frogan's primary purpose was to critique the nuke, she would have taken the time to substantiate her assertions. The lack of substantiation further emphasizes that Frogan's primary purpose was not to critique the nuke, but rather to provide a substitute for the original. Below are some examples of Frogan's unsubstantiated false assertions. Number 1, that Ethan should not provide political analysis. He gives a timestamp. The irony of this comment is that Frogan proves that she is incompetent at providing political analysis herself. For example, when the nuke discusses Hassan's tweet to Senator Cotton of the schematics of a gun used to assassinate Shinzo Abe, Frogan initially confuses Senator Cotton with Senator Chuck Schumer of New York, who is also Jewish, by the way, and only realizes her mistake when her chat points out that AR, the abbreviation for Arkansas, is in Senator Cotton's username. That's a really bad look right there. Also considering that Chuck Schumer's a pretty famous senator who's often made fun of on late night talk shows. So even if you're not into politics, you should know what that guy looks like. I mean, I'll openly admit I know nothing about politics, and I can picture that guy's face in my mind. Thank you, Daily Show. All right. Number 2, Ethan doesn't care about Muslims. Number 3, falsely claiming Arabs have not killed Israelis. Rather, only Israelis have killed Arabs. Palestinians have killed 1,706 Israelis since the October 7th attack. And he gives a timestamp. Ethan is not a Democrat. Number 5, Gila called for killing baby militants. That's a pretty bold claim. Does she have any evidence of that? Jesus. Number 6, Ethan is dishonest. That's an opinionated statement. That she can probably get away with that one. Number 7, the clips used in the nuke lack context, despite failing to provide or explain the omitted context. That's another pet peeve of mine, is when somebody keeps screaming out of context, but then refuses to provide the context. That should also be a red flag to you. If you're making a claim, then the onus is on you to support it. If you're claiming out of context, then the onus is now on you to provide that context. All right, number 8. The clips used in the nuke were pulled from Destiny's subreddit. Not only does Frogan fail to substantiate this assertion, she does not explain how this alters the meaning or context of the clips used in the nuke. I will reiterate one last time, because I know Destiny bad, because he is Hassan's mortal enemy. The judge does not care if they came from his subreddit. The judge does not care if the information came from Kiwi Farms. The judge does not care what streamer you don't like that might have said the thing. The judge only cares, is the thing being said true or false? Full stop. All right, Section K. In the rare instance where Frogan does engage with the content of the nuke, her comments primarily concern her favorite topic, herself. Most of these observations have little to no critical bearing on the style or substance of the nuke. The remainder involve making repetitive comments to defend herself, demonstrating Frogan could have used far less of the nuke to make her critique and defend herself. Examples include: number 1, Frogan expressing excitement that she was included in the nuke. Number 2, indulging in her fantasy that Ethan is obsessed with her, when the opposite is clearly the case. He gives examples. He gives timestamps for the video for the judge to watch. Number 3, repeatedly regurgitating her bitterness at the nuke's joke that she is paid by Qatar. Number 4, expressing bewilderment at what was wrong with her comments and post attacking Ethan. He gives timestamps. Number 5, gloating over her Rising Star Award. Timestamp. Number 6, thanking Ethan for using a recent picture of her. Again, a timestamp. Number 7, taking issue with being described as Hassan's quote-unquote head mod, despite the nuke never making that claim. He offers 2 clips here for comparison. Okay. Number 8, during the segment of the nuke critiquing Frogan for her comments towards Ludwig, Frogan repeats the same explanation and apology throughout the segment. Timestamp provided. Number 9, during the segment of the nuke critiquing Frogan for her comment that she wishes veterans get PTSD, Frogan 1 repeats her assertion that the clip was taken out of context, but when the context is shown, i.e., that her comment does not apply to veterans who confess their sins, it does not ameliorate the criticism. I don't think any judge would make exceptions for wishing PTSD on any veteran. So saying that you didn't wish it on all doesn't make it any better. That's going to be a bad look. And a quick reminder before I go forward. This nuke that he keeps referencing in these timestamps has been submitted to the court in its entirety as evidence. We outlined that when we were reading the Casey Tron case, which they've copy and pasted here. The timestamps he's referencing are to help the judge make quick points, or the prosecution or the defense, so that they can, try to defend themselves on certain points. But more than likely, the entirety of the nuke, there's a good chance that the entirety of the nuke will be played before the judge and or jury, because I will take a quick spot to remind people, because I didn't read it at the beginning since it was in the Casey Tron complaint. Ethan is asking for jury trials in all 3 of these cases. So there could be 12 normies being shown all this information for the first time. Something to keep in mind. How this would look if you showed it to your grandma, to your aunt, to that lady at church. If you just showed it to a random dude on the street. Because it could be any of them that end up in that jury. If Ethan is granted the jury trial. He may not. The judge doesn't always grant those. Okay, anyway. Moving on. Number 2, repeatedly stating she is embarrassed by what she said, despite continuing to laugh over her statements about veterans. And number 3, falsely stating she was banned for 30 days due to her statements, when the actual reason for her ban was the racial tier list she hosted at TwitchCon. And he gives a citation for that. So that's also provided as evidence. Number 10. During the segment of the nuke critiquing Frogan's X post on October 7th, Frogan repeats her paltry and unpersuasive attempt to excuse her post by focusing solely on the time it was made, i.e. the morning of October 7th on the East Coast, which was over 10 hours after the attacks began. And then he gives a timestamp for that. Frogan also strategically omits that she liked several posts on X praising Hamas on October 7th. That's a little bit of added context there that she left out. Number 11. During the segment of the nuke critiquing Frogan's panel at TwitchCon 2024, Frogan makes such a transparent attempt at damage control that her chat calls her out for it. Frogan's damage control consists of, number 1, making brief statements that are minimally related or completely unrelated to the nuke. Number 2, repeatedly denying she knew that the word Sabra means a Jew born in Israel, despite claiming to be an expert in the Middle East. And he provides a timestamp of that claim. Number 3, providing no substantive response to being called anti-Semitic. Number 4, basically saying she didn't deny it. Number 4, and he gives a timestamp to prove that. Number 4, shifting the focus from the discussion on Jews from Arab countries to her family's expulsion during the 1948 war. And number 5, repeatedly attempting, albeit unsuccessfully, to minimize Denham's comment that Ethan should be put into a new category called, quote-unquote, Zionist, and that Ethan is a Zionist because of his takes on Palestine. Which, your opinion on Palestine, I did remember Googling Zionist once because I was like, is that a dog whistle for Jew? And it kind of sounds like it just means Jew. I mean, it's a certain kind of Jew, but you still have to be Jewish to be a Zionist, according to the definition I read. But hey, maybe Google's AI was wrong. But it doesn't sound as if having an opinion on Palestine would or would not make you a Zionist. I don't think there's any group that ethnic group where your inclusion in that group is dependent on your opinion. It's a weird take, but okay. Number 6. Making the bizarre claim that she has no role is creating thumbnail and uploading the video of the racial tier list from TwitchCon to her podcast channel. And number 7, claiming that it is easy to debunk blatant lies, unquote, yet failing to debunk anything material or substantive. Number 12, section 12. During the segment of the nuke on Twitch banning the creation of new accounts in Israel and Palestine, was another quick, well, maybe he'll debunk it here. I'm going to quit going on these tangents. Okay. Frogan repeats the same critique that the ban included Palestine. Okay, he does not go into detail there, but that was one of the arguments that the snarker I watched the video on also made, and I've seen repeated on Twitter as well, that they didn't ban IPs on phones. They only banned IPs on computers. That is not true. The phone exception to the creation of accounts during the Twitch ban of those areas where the IPs were banned, I don't remember the exact areas, so I'm not going to pretend to, but I do know that the exception to those bans wasn't whether or not your IP came from a phone. They don't care what device you create the account on. The accounts were simply required to have two-factor authentication, meaning you could not create an account in those parts of the world without also providing a phone number, which a lot of users either did not feel safe doing or could not do because they didn't have phones or they didn't have phone numbers. So it basically hindered their ability to make accounts when no other part of the world had such hindrance. That was the argument that Dan Saltman was making, and that it was targeted. I won't go into all his arguments. You guys can go watch his old video on it, but I am a guy with a degree in IT, so I know the difference between two-factor authentication and an IP. I know when you guys start talking tech stuff and you're wrong, that I can call out. That is my area of expertise, and you're talking out of your ass. Little pet peeve of mine. Okay. 1. To be certain, there are brief and fleeting moments when Frogan makes a highly transformative use of the nuke. So he's admitting that she does transform it sometimes. But remember, to be fair use, that transformation must be substantive. And that still wouldn't negate the claim that she is stealing views and ad revenue from his original video. So, all right. Anyway, back to this. Where the nuke seeks to expose how Hassan radicalizes people online to be anti-Semitic and anti-Israel, Frogan attempts to use the nuke for the exact opposite, to radicalize her audience to be more anti-Semitic and anti-Israel. The transformative nature of these moments are undetermined, if not erased, by showing far more of the nuke than is necessary to achieve the purpose. Examples include: on 2 occasions, the nuke discusses Mizrahi Jews living in Israel. When the nuke discusses that the number of, I'm just going to call them Miz Jews, because I'm pretty sure I'm mispronouncing that name and I don't want to butcher it any further. When the nuke discusses that the number of Miz Jews expelled from Arab countries exceeded the number of Palestinians expelled during the Nakba, Frogan makes the frivolous assertion that this is a form of erasing the Nakba. Frogan does not explain how recognizing the tragedy that occurred to the Miz Jews erases the tragedy of the Nakba. Rather, Frogan provides an anecdote about how her parental grandparents were told to leave and come back in 4 months. Section 2. On 3 occasions, Frogan accuses Ethan of conflating Judaism with Zionism. Not only is it cruelly ironic that someone who hates Israel has the audacity to opine on this issue, it also reveals Frogan's fundamental lack of understanding of the Jewish people. A 2019-2020 peer review research center survey of 4,718 American Jews found 82% considered caring about Israel to be essential or important to what it means to be Jewish. In another poll conducted in December 2024 of 800 American Jewish adults, 70% think anti-Zionist movements are anti-Semitic by definition, and only 9% strongly disagreed with that statement. So that means that the remaining 21% were neutral. Section M. The nuke takes the vast majority of the screen for Frogan's group viewing session, while Frogan sequences herself to a small portion of the screen that de-emphasizes her presence. Frogan's objective was to provide a large and unobstructed view of the nuke to her audience, which further emphasizes her primary purpose was to provide a substitute for the original. Section N. Frogan's use of the nuke was highly commercial. During her group viewing session of the nuke, Frogan, 1, repeatedly calls upon her audience to pay her for subscriptions to her channel, thanks new subscribers, and then promotes her podcast. Both before and during Frogan's group viewing session of the nuke, Frogan places her paid subscription goal prominently on the screen, including 1, a chat PowerPoint topic, see Exhibit H. Number 2, heart cake baking stream. The timestamp is given for that. Oh, I gotta drink some water. Okay. And number 3, sleep stream. Indeed, during her group viewing session of the nuke, Frogan received numerous paid subscriptions and donations, which would result in an announcement playing over the nuke. So basically, he's letting the judge know that every time she gets a subscription or gets paid, and a notification pops up on screen playing sounds over the nuke, making it, even harder to get the content. Making it so that it's not transformative, or like pointing out that this is when she got a donation. So I'm assuming he's doing that so that when the judge watches it back, or when it's played in court, every time that pops up on screen, people who aren't familiar with live streamers, be it the judge or the jury, would know every time you hear this sound, She just got paid. You need to know that. Okay. Further, Frogan received revenue from her group viewing session of the nuke. Finally, on her Twitch page where Frogan's group viewing session was located, Frogan placed buttons soliciting paid subscriptions and donations beneath the video of Frogan's group viewing session of the nuke. Number 63. As to the second fair use factor, the fact the nuke was released a minute prior to Frogan's group viewing session does not weigh in her favor. Further, while containing numerous documentary and factual elements, the nuke contains numerous creative elements, which weigh against her claim of fair use. As to the third fair use factor, this factor weighs heavily against fair use. It is readily apparent Frogan's use was excessive for any potential criticism of the nuke, particularly in light of minimal level of commentary and highly commercial nature of Frogan's group viewing session. This is particularly true when Frogan repeatedly provides brief statements, many of which have little to no critical bearing on the nuke, after showing long, unadulterated segments of the nuke. Number 65. The fourth, and subsequently most important fair use factor, weighs the most heavily against her claim of fair use. It is readily apparent that Frogan intended, and succeeded, to provide a market substitute for the nuke for the reasons set forth below. The statements identified in paragraph 62A above, showing the nuke in its entirety with minimal commentary, starting her group viewing session a minute after the nuke was released to the public, when the interest to the nuke was at its apex. The first induce post and second inducement post, which I will say those were outlined as part of the H3 snark section, which I did read in the KC Tron videos. I would recommend watching that video first before watching this one or the Denims one I will do tomorrow. Okay. By the H3 snark mods. So for the reasons set forth below. So basically they're saying that she was meant to be a market substitute and advertised as such on the H3 snark post by the moderators, which, yeah, it was pretty explicit. That's exactly what they were directing their audience to do, was to go watch anyone in this list of creators instead of watching Ethan. And they got that in plain black and white English. E. Due to Frogan siphoning the audience for the nuke to her group viewing session, Teddy Entertainment Inc. lost views and ad money it would ordinarily receive from the individuals who watched Frogan's group viewing session instead of the nuke. Frogan's conduct did become widespread. Several other members of Hassan's waiting room conducted a group viewing session of the nuke immediately after its release. Ooh, so he is claiming that she was the first to do it and that they all followed suit. So he is positioning her as the pack leader here, as the first domino to fall, and everyone else, which makes her look a little bit more guilty, because that's mob mentality is a thing. So if people see that someone else is doing it, they think it gives them permission to doing it. But when she did it first, she should have known better. The fact that others followed means that now she's probably partially responsible for them. Maybe, maybe not. That one's, it depends on the judge there. He could interpret it that way or he could not. This isn't like a big enough, it's not like inciting a riot. It's not a big enough claim that he could immediately jump to that conclusion, but I can see what they were going for, which resulted in further loss of views and loss of revenue to Teddy Fresh Inc. All right, first claim for relief. These are the things he wants. All right, Teddy Fresh Inc. incorporates by reference the allegations contained in the preceding paragraphs of the complaint. Teddy Fresh Inc. is the sole owner of the copyrights to the nuke and has registered it with the United States Copyright Office. Frogan accessed the nuke from Teddy Fresh Inc.'s YouTube channel H3H3 Productions. Teddy Fresh Inc. did not grant any license, authorization, or consent for Frogan to exploit the nuke in this manner. Rather, Frogan's group viewing session of the nuke constituted an unauthorized reproduction, public performance, and derivative work of the nuke in violation of Teddy Freshing's rights as set forth in 17 U.S.C. Section 106. It references the law that she is breaking. Number 70. Due to Frogan's acts of copyright infringement, Teddy Fresh Inc. has suffered damages in an amount to be established at trial. So what they'll more than likely do there is they will add up the amount of viewers she got, compare that to what her average stream is. If they're being super generous, they'll look at what her average viewership was, which he tried to point out earlier in the stream was 160 people. They'll see what her viewership was during the nuke, subtract the average from that to say, well, these are your normal viewers, so we're not going to count them, but we will count all of they could technically count all of them, but if they're being generous, they'll say, okay, we're only going to count all these extra people who normally aren't here, that they're clearly here for the purpose of the nuke and not for you. So that's how you can make that argument. So they'll look at that number, then they'll look at H3 CPM for YouTube, however much revenue they make per ad, per viewer, and then they'll do the math to find out how many ads were played during the content nuke, how many people were watching, how much money would that have cost H3, and that gives them a base. That could not be the entire number. That could just be a base, because remember, they also have to weigh potential viewers who are going to watch it after, that aren't going to watch it because H3 Snark was also, telling people not to watch it, or that they may have given a bad review of it or whatever, that they tell their other snarkers not to go watch it at all. So potential damages is going to be one of those open to interpretation things. They'll have to put forth a pretty good argument for those. But at the very least, they're going to have a direct number of the amount of views she siphoned, the amount of money those views are worth, and the length of time in which those views watched her stream. Okay. Number 72. Frogan's act of copyright infringement were done with actual or constructive knowledge of Teddy Fresh Inc.'s rights, such that said acts of copyright infringement were willful, intentional, malicious, and or taken with reckless disregard for Ethan's rights. I'm just going to replace Teddy Fresh Inc. with Ethan, because we all know who this is. Second claim for relief. Ethan incorporates by reference the allegations contained in the preceding paragraphs of this complaint. The H3 Snark mods, each one of them, knew Frogan's group viewing session would infringe upon Ethan's copyright in the nuke. The H3 Snark mods, each and every one of them, are responsible for the first inducement post and the second inducement post. So it's referencing the pinned post on the subreddit that advertised to go watch these streamers. Again, that's what those are. I know I didn't read it during this one. Watch the Caseytron. All right. The first and second inducement post caused and or materially contributed to Frogan's infringement of the nuke. 77. Due to H3 Snark mod's contributory infringement, Ethan has suffered damages in an amount to be established at trial. So this is where he's going to say potential views that went to the H3 Snark mod and either were told not to watch it, and maybe they would have, or were given an alternate way to watch it. So we're not even just talking about Frogan stream. He's also indicting them as co-conspirators, that they were also providing alternatives, because there were posts on the H3 Snark sub, which he has provided as evidence. Again, I covered all of that in the Caseytron one, but I'll go over it real quick here. They had post after post of re-uploads of the nuke that they downloaded to help people watch it without giving him a view. It was very intentional. They used a site called YouTube, spelled Y-E-W tube, which is a downloading service that allows you to download the video and repost it without ever giving a view to the original creator. Okay. Prayer for relief. So we're at the last page here, guys. We're approaching the end. This is what he wants from all of it. After this, I will once again state how I think he should end it, versus what this states, and we'll see how it goes. But wherefore, Ethan prays for judgment against Frogan and the H3 Snark mods, collectively known from here on out as defendants, as follows. Ethan be awarded defendants and each of their profits, plus Ethan's losses, attributed to defendant's infringement upon the nuke, the exact sum to be proven at the time of trial, or, if elected, statutory damages in the amount of $150,000 as available under 17 U.S.C. Section 504. Ethan to be awarded it responsible attorney's fees and cost under 17 U.S.C. Section 505. So he wants damages and for them to pay for his attorneys. And we all know Ethan's attorneys are very expensive. Okay. C. Ethan be awarded prejudgment interest as allowed by law, and Ethan be awarded such further relief as the court deems proper. So he's trying to get a prejudgment without it like going all the way to the jury trial, to say like he wants the judge to rule on it, and if the judge doesn't, then he has down here jury trial demand. Ethan demands a jury trial on all issues so tribal pursuant to Federal Rule of Civil Procedure 38 and the 7th Amendment of the United States Constitution, dated June 9th, 2025. And his lawyer signed it. There's the entirety of the Frogan lawsuit document filing. Now, he's trying to get a pre-summary judgment so it doesn't go all the way to trial. If it doesn't, and he's saying if it does go to trial, he wants a jury trial. Now on to my final thoughts. I have bit my tongue for most of that, as I wanted to just get the facts out. Now I will go on to my opinion. If you have no interest in my opinion and you were just here for the documents, you may leave now. If you are interested in my opinion and how I think he should end it, stick around, because this is where it gets entertaining. I'll start with how I think he should end it. And I'll address Ethan Klein directly if anybody wants to get their finger on the clip button, because I hope this clip gets in front of me. Let's go. Ethan Klein, I've read the documents for your lawsuits against Casey Tron, Denims, and Frogan. It sounds like you have a solid case, and I think you are right when you say that they will be begging to settle. I propose that you accept their offer to settle, but that you do not ask for any of the things you asked for in the lawsuit itself. I propose that instead of asking for money, monetary damages, or even an apology, that you ask for one thing and one thing only. I propose that you ask that each one of them, in exchange for ending this lawsuit without having to pay a dime, that they give up their right to fair use. That they are waiving indefinitely their right, or whatever the limitation is the court will allow, their right to fair use, so that they may never react to content on a stream, a YouTube video, or in a public fashion again. You will take no money from them, so people cannot say that you are trying to make them go broke. You are not trying to take their careers away or cancel them. You are simply making it so that they have to succeed on their own merit and no one else's. They will sink or swim based on the content they and they alone can provide. I think that is a fitting punishment given the crimes committed, and will set a very interesting precedent going forward. Thanks for hearing me out, Ethan. Give it some thought, bud. All right, that's where we can end the clip. So that's how I think it should be ended. I think that Frogan is significantly more cooked than Casey Tron. Casey Tron just sounded like a stoner dumbass just chasing clout and just trying to make a quick buck. Your common, everyday, run-of-the-mill criminal the judge probably sees all the time. But Frogan, on the other hand, Frogan sounds like a radical. A racist, radical extremist. The kind of which protest in the streets or commit acts of terror. The kind of which scare old boomers in robes, and normies who may occupy a jury. I think he's right. They will beg to settle. And I really hope that clip I'm going to make out of that little speech I just gave gets in front of Ethan. Because I can't think of a better way to end it. I can't think of a more fitting punishment and better way to set an example out of these fucking malicious ass clowns. Their intentions are so clear, a child could recognize them. I can prove that, as my child recognized them. She's fucking 10. And her immediate response was, "That's stealing. You can't do that." And this is a child who spends her time playing Minecraft and watching Minecraft YouTubers. And even she understands that if somebody else was playing her favorite Minecraft YouTuber and saying nothing or leaving an empty chair on the screen, that they are stealing from her favorite content creator. She's fucking 10. The fact that there are grown-ass fucking adults who fail to understand this or are purposefully trying to not engage with the arguments made only speaks to the radicalization that Ethan points out in the complaint. So be careful what you guys say online. Be careful what you guys say in their defense, because the more radical you sound, the more evidence you are giving him in his case against Frogan. The bigger an example of how radicalized that audience is, he now has to work with. He's already used H3 snark against them. All of you fans out there who are coming to simp to their defense, just keep in mind, he might use you as double agents too. Choose your words carefully. That's going to do it for tonight's stream, guys. That's going to do it for this video. I'm going to thank all of you wonderful witches for watching. We do these streams every night around 11 p.m. I promise they aren't all boring court document readings, but I wanted this information out there for those people who probably won't read it themselves. So having a nice audiobook format for the content may give people a reason to read it. However, if you did enjoy that, a lot of my content definitely shows a lot more personality and is a lot more interesting. So I recommend that you sub to the channel, help me reach 1,000 subs so I can get ad revenue on my own channel and watch some of my content. We live stream every night at 11. All the socials are above my head. And I hope to see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.